Today we'll talk about these beautiful orchids here. We will explore a little bit about Dendrobium orchids, cultural needs, different types according to its cultural needs, and some other curiosities. And I will also talk to you, I will also tell you which Dendrobiums I own. If you are curious about Dendrobiums, if you have some Dendrobiums that are about to bloom soon, or if you found a beautiful one in the garden center or at your local supermarket, why not? Please stay here with me and let's talk a little bit more about this type of orchids. Before I start talking about the Dendrobiums, just to let you know, I'm wearing that inside my flat because my boiler is broken. Yay, it's winter here. I don't have a boiler, so no hot water, no heating. It's okay. It's just cold inside, very, very cold. The plants are okay though. They probably will be a little bit stressed, not growing as fast as they could, but they are all alive. And hopefully it won't last for very long. Let's return to Dendrobiums, shall we? So Dendrobiums are the second largest genus of orchids. The first one is Bulbophyllum. If you didn't know that, you know now. Since we have so many species, if I'm not mistaken, we have around 1,400 of cataloged species of Dendrobiums. So they are a vast genus. If you think about so many different species, you probably guessed that they have different requirements to grow and they grow in different areas as well. Most of the species of Dendrobiums, they grow in Asia, Australia, New Zealand. They are spread in that area of the world, but we have Dendrobiums that are maybe growing towards soil, or there are epiphytes. Some of them that are like miniature, some of them that are large species. We have ones that are adapted to cooler environments, others that are adapted to warmer environments. So every time that you acquire a new Dendrobium, you should research its care. But luckily for us, all of the Dendrobiums that you find available in supermarkets, most of them will probably be the nobile or the Phalaenopsis type. They are perfect for home growing. And some of the ones that we'll find in garden centers and maybe in orchid nurseries, they will also grow very well and happily inside our homes, with few exceptions. It's impossible for me to come and talk to you about all types of Dendrobiums. I don't have knowledge for that. I am learning as I go. So I'll explore with you a little bit about different cultural needs, that we have a cultural classification for Dendrobiums, that we don't have all of the species inside this cultural classification, but we have some of them. So I end after that to tell you the ones that I have and what I experience growing them inside my flat. If that's a kind of content that you like, please leave your like on this video and also leave a comment down below if you'd like me to tell you a little bit more about other type of orchids, and show you my collection as well. So let's start with the cultural classification, shall we? The first group that I'm going to present to you is the Dendrobium Phalaenanthe. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. Or as everybody knows them as Phalaenopsis dendrobiums, because some people think that their flowers remember the moth orchid shaped flowers. So when you look to Dendrobium Phalaenopsis, lots of people remember of the Phalaenopsis orchids. I would say that these plants, they are more towards the warm growing type of orchids. They come from tropical countries. I have a whole video about this type of Dendrobiums. I'll link it down below, where I show you beautiful blooms and I talk a little bit more about these plants if you're curious to know a little bit further. But they don't require a cool down during winter to be able to bloom, and they need pretty bright light and intermediate to warm temperature in order to thrive. They produce flowers towards the apical part or the top part of the cane. That's where the flower will sprout. Similarly to this beauty here, the apice, the top part of its cane, that's where the flower is coming. You won't see flower coming from other parts of the cane, but always from the tops. The same thing with this beauty here. These Dendrobiums, the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, They are very common. You can find them easily locally, at least in Europe, I'm sure. They are everywhere. You can find the Sanook hybrids, and there are other hybrids as well, but the Sanook are the most common ones. And you find them even in supermarkets. I've found them here in the UK at Tesco's and other growing space. The only thing that you have to pay attention is lighting, and you have to find a bright spot for this plant. More than that, to grow well inside your temperature, if you give it some water, it will be fine. Next one, I'm gonna talk about the Spatulata or antelope type of orchid. These types of orchids, I don't have any. I don't own any Spatulata type of Dendrobium. I don't have experience with it. I'm gonna just brush it a little bit, let you know a little bit about them from what I researched. But if you buy one specific species, it's really good for you to read more about them, because I don't have time to explore all of these in depth. And without further ado, I'm sorry, I'm blabbing a lot, but antelope type of orchids, they have this name, I imagine because of the flowers. They look like they have horns, you know? So probably someone that look at them and imagine they could resemble an antelope gave this name. The flowers, they are quite characteristic. If you look at them, you would understand what I mean by the horns. And more than that, they are evergreen type of orchids, which means they don't shade all of their leaves in order to rebloom. So they don't need a cool down in temperature to rebloom in the following year either. There are some types of Dendrobiums that are not like that. That's why I'm telling you this. Like the Phalaenopsis type Dendrobiums, it needs a warm temperature all year round. So it also comes from tropical parts of the planet. You need to offer it plenty of light, fertilizing, and intermediate to warm temperature in order for it to bloom. Don't put it in the freezing conditions outside your place if it's snowing. This is not the type of Dendrobium for that, neither the Phalaenopsis type. However, the next one that we talk about, there are the Dendrobiums itself, Dendrobiums. They have tall canes, in most cases, not all of them, but lots of them, they have tall canes. And on the nodes of the canes, the flowers can sprout from there. You have leaves in between the nodes of the canes, but also in each of the nodes, you can have brand new flower spikes emerging from it. They are also adapted to bright light. So when it's spring and summer, they need plenty of bright light in order to grow and bloom. They need lots of fertilizing, but they need a drop down in temperature to be able to rebloom in the next season. So the difference between these and the other two that I've just spoken to you is that this one, you need to have a space in your home if you live in a flat, for example, and it gets pretty cold during winter and you need to keep your heating on. You need to place them in a place where they will experience this drop down in temperature. If you live in a place where you have seasons, you will need a wintertime temperature that goes at least to 10-15 degrees Celsius in order for these plants to be able to spike and to rebloom. These type of Dendrobiums, they do shed some leaves, so the old canes, they can become completely bare, and the new one can shed some bottom leaves when it's cold because the metabolism reduced in order for these plants to rebloom. So it's normal to lose some of its leaves, but mainly the old canes will be completely bare. There are so many Dendrobiums with certain specifications inside of these, but the most common ones are the Dendrobium nobile type orchids that you can find everywhere. They are very popular. At least I know that in Brazil they are very popular, South America. Here in the UK and in Europe, they are very, very popular. You can find them in supermarkets as well, garden centers, all of the hybrids, pretty available everywhere. I have a few. I've showed them before, not all of them, but most of them. They will be blooming soon, so they are all full of buds now. It's amazing. I need to remove them from my cool space. I will do that shortly. I have another one there that I will talk about my collection soon. Anyway, this one is the Berry Yoda. It's a hybrid that has the Dendrobium bigibbon, and it's one of the parents. That's also one type of orchid that needs a cool down in temperature to be able to bloom. The difference between this one and the nobile, the nobile is larger leaves, larger, taller canes and everything else. But the flower spikes come from the top of the cane, while the nobile, you can see the flowers coming through the cane, the whole cane. But both are from inside the dendrobium type of dendrobiums. Sorry, so many dendrobiums. And they both need a winter temperature. So they need to feel the differentiation between summer, spring, and autumn and winter to be able to rebloom. Some nurseries per market, they do this artificially. They can have space where they can cool down the temperature. That's how they get the nobiles to rebloom earlier, and also Phalaenopsis. Not the Dendrobium, Phalaenopsis. So that's how you can maybe see dendrobiums available all year round in your region. If you live in a place where you don't have any cool down during winter, you may stick to other dendrobiums, for example, the Phalaenopsis type, as I said, the antelope type, others that are more adequate for the region where you live in. You don't need to have Dendrobiums periodas and nobilis, for example, if it's going to be a hassle for you to offer the appropriate conditions for your plants. So the good thing about dendrobiums that they are so vast and they are so different in between them that you can choose which one is the perfect match for the place you live, and you don't need to keep hustling, finding gadgets and stuff for it. That's why I decided to do this video, because it may help you to choose one for your home. Let's go and talk about the next one. Just talking about dendrobiums, some of them are semi-deciduous, as I said, the Dendrobium nobile. Sorry, I forgot before. And some of them are completely deciduous plant, which means they will shed all of its leaves when it's winter, and they will have bare canes. So before they rebloom, their canes will be completely bare without leaves. The nobile is not completely deciduous, they semi-deciduous orchids, but we do have some dendrobiums that they've shed all of its leaves before they rebloom, and they start producing a new cane and new leaves in the next season. So the next group that I'm going to talk now is the Dendrobium Latouria. I don't know what Latouria means. I will research that and I may write something in here. But Dendrobium Latourias, usually they have pseudobulbs, and they produce a cascade inflorescence. So the flowers will be hanging from the pseudobulb, and we have like a huge number of flowers hanging, cascading from the pseudobulb. All of the dendrobiums will have like tall canes with sections, as the nobile does. Just for you to know, some of them will have some like round shapes like proper pseudobulbs. Remember, I don't know, maybe like looks like maybe Cattleya pseudobulbs. So Latouria is one kind of dendrobium that has this kind of inflorescence. I'm going to read some of the names of some species here. For example, Dendrobium farmeri, Dendrobium tersiflorum. If you haven't seen it already, one of the ones that I don't have the tersiflorum, I have the densiflorum. But again, is this idea of having a cascading full of flowers, and that they have beautiful flowers as well. I don't know if they have fragrance or not. I'm definitely placing some pictures for you here. And the thing about the Dendrobium Latouria is that they are evergreen dendrobiums as well. They don't shade leaves, and they don't have a cool down in temperature. You need to offer them warm temperature and bright light. During winter time, you can water it a little bit less until the median is completely dry. But it's not the type of dendrobium that you will need to worry much. And don't put it outside if it's very cold, you won't enjoy it. It needs to be inside where the temperature is pretty warm. And the last type of dendrobiums that I'm gonna talk to you about today is the Dendrobium Formosae. So the famous Dendrobium belatulum, that's a miniature dendrobium, it's inside this group. This group is a little bit different. It's known by the black hair that you can see on the leaves and pseudobulbs. That's what gave the name and the characteristic to this group. There is something very different about this group as well, that most of the species inside this group, they are towards the cool to intermediate type of temperature. They don't enjoy hot environments. So if you live in a place that's extremely hot and dry, I wouldn't tell you to try to grow one of them. I've had one Belatulum, I lost it. So that was the last group that I want to tell you about. In general, there are so many species and hybrids of Dendrobiums that you can grow easily inside your home that I'm sure you won't have problems to find one that suits your needs. The most common, and as I already mentioned, is the nobile and the Phalaenopsis. You find their hybrids everywhere around garden centers, orchid nurseries, supermarkets, flower shops. All of my nobiles and Phalaenopsis type of Dendrobiums I bought locally. I bought them mostly in flower shops and supermarkets. That's how I had my collection, my actual collection. I have a list of the Dendrobiums that I have inside my house to present to you my collection and give you a few thoughts about these plants. I hope you enjoy them. I will go to the other two that I just mentioned, but before I will talk about this one because it's in bloom. I decided not to do a full care tutorial this time about this plant. It's the famous Dendrobium berryuda. It's also a very popular orchid. As I said, it is a hybrid, not a species. And one of the parents is the Bigibon, that's an Australian Dendrobium. And it has a fragrance. How to describe this fragrance? It's a strong floral fragrance. It's not the one that I love, that I adore, but far from me, it's okay. Don't feel like it doesn't make me sick if I'm not sniffing inside the flowers. The flowers are so cute. They are tiny, but as you can see, they come in a bunch together with a hairy lip. I love the shape of these flowers. They are so cute. And I have another flower spike coming here behind. I have this plant for a very long time and I found it in a garden center actually. What happened with this plant is it's very easy to grow and very easy to divide. You can basically, when you have lots of canes, you can take out 3 canes and give it to a friend. So each will grow super fast. However, last year I wasn't able to rebloom this plant. It needed a cooler temperature to rebloom. This year I placed it inside my cooler space earlier and I was able to have flower spikes. The problem with my berryuda is that it attracts pests like nothing, like Dendrobiums do, especially Phalaenopsis Dendrobiums and the berryuda, both of them. If thrips has a preference in my collection are these 2 plants. They love it so much and they find it. Even like I remember I isolated it in my daughter's bedroom and they came through the window and they attacked it. So it's really difficult to keep cleaning it all the time. So it has grazings on its leaves. And that's why it's not sitting with all of my plants. I brought it here now to film, but I will take it to the other room soon. So I cannot keep looking to the flowers because I know it will be devoured by the pests. That's the upside down. So that's one of my thoughts about my collection of Dendrobiums. I think they are lovely. I know there are people that prefer Phalaenopsis, Vandas. Taste is something that is very personal, but you can get creative with Dendrobiums as well. There are so many different types out there, so many different colors and shapes and patterns that you can definitely have a beautiful collection of Dendrobiums. They are not the top one in my list, but I definitely enjoy them. And when I see them in bloom, they definitely cheer the environment up because they can produce like a ton of flowers. And usually they bloom once a year, especially these one, the Dendrobiums, the nobiles, the berryudas, it depends on the cool down temperature, they will bloom once a year. The Phalaenopsis, you can have more blooms through the year, but they are definitely lovely. So I want to talk first of all about this one because it's in bloom now. And I intend to enjoy my berryuda blooms for as long as it lasts. It's the first time that I'm seeing it here. And it's a very cute orchid. If you find it, usually it is a cheap one. So if you find it for a good price, go for it. I think it's worth it. And then talking about affordable dendrobiums, I do have a collection of Phalaenopsis dendrobiums, as you probably know. I've showed some of them here to you before. None of them will bloom for me now because the ones that were here in my living room, they were munted down by pests. So they produced cakeys. Something very good about Dendrobiums is that they produce cakeys a lot, especially if they are suffering. I've just recorded a video about one of my Dendrobiums where I was repotting all of the cakeys. If they are the brink of dying or something, they usually sprout cakeys and you can remove the cakeys. And I'll link some video down below and pot them separately. So I have with my Phalaenopsis, I do have some mature ones, but I have others that I had only the cakeys left and the cakes are still growing. I don't know when I will have Dendrobium Phalaenopsis bloom. And another thing is they need bright light, and I offered, basically I filled the brightest space for my Cattleyas for them. I know I didn't prioritize them as much as they should be prioritized, so they are spread around the house. They will rebloom soon, but I do have a few. I have the red one, the Thailand black. I do have the purple one that's called Sanuk blue something. And yeah, I'll leave here some pictures for you to see. So I do have a few Dendrobium Phalaenopsis because again, I bought them locally, so that's the advantage. Then talking about the most common ones, I also have some Dendrobium nobilis. They will be in bloom soon, and we include maybe in the February, what's in bloom in February for you. As you can see, they produced many flowers, and the flowers grow on the canes. I have the white one, I have the Comet King, I have one that's like a maybe pastel yellow, and I have another one that's called, let me read to you the name. Eukidaruma, that's a hybrid that has some nobly on it as well. It has white flowers with a dark center. It will bloom soon. I have one that I bought from Wellington school last year. I recorded a video. They told me on the tag was saying that this one is the Anosmus cons with Parisiae. That's called Dendrobium Nestor. I don't think it is. I'm filming that for you. I put it on the cool down for it maybe to bloom, but I don't know. I think it's a young plant. I think that's not a Nestor Dendrobium. I think it's another one. I leave the name here. Looking at the leaves and how the canes are growing, I think it's a different one. Nonetheless, I'm happy with both of them, but I don't think it is. It doesn't have the same type of leaves and canes. Here, I've showed you my hibiki that was suffering full of cake. Something is wrong with that plant. I don't know what it is. I repotted. It's in my living room. The hibiki has beautiful pink flowers, and that they produced on the cane, not on the top of the cane necessarily. I think it's spread around the cane. Lot of pinky flowers. I'm super curious about it. I really want to see it. And here with me, another one that I have as well that I'm not gonna show you. One of the hybrids of the unicorn, the orange one. I forgot the name, but I will place pictures and the full name in here. This one is a problem. It keeps producing cakes and pushing cakes out. It's still alive, but if the cakes don't survive, the plant will die. Hopefully the cakes will survive. I'll keep you posted. I have that one, and I put on this table here the ones that I have here in the living room. I'm gonna take them closer to me. I don't know if you can see. Put it here, maybe you can see a little bit. So this one, they are all young plants. This one has 5 cakeys. This one is the Densiflorum. It's a very cute tiny orchid. The Densiflorum is the one that produces a cascading of white, yellow flowers. And it's supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dendrobium. I got it as a seedling, so it's growing nicely. The only thing is that pest attacks it sometimes, but it's fine. I also have the Dendrobium griftianum that's similar to this one, produce yellow flowers and a cascading of yellow flowers. The difference is this one has like canes similar to the nobilis, for example, or very similar to the Berioda, and the Griftianum is the one that I told you that has a cane, a round cane. They are very different plants. When you look to the leaves, the other one produces like glossier leaves than this one. But the flowers are both yellow flowers. The other one that I have is this one. I got it as a seedling again from Orchid Alchemy. They sell seedling orchids. That's called Dendrobium tapkiniense. And it's similar to a bulbophyllum. It has very tiny pseudobulbs and round-shaped pseudobulbs, very different from the other ones. Hopefully it will survive. And the last one that I have in here is the Dendrobium delicatum. That's a hybrid from Australian orchids. From what I've seen on the pictures, it has a lot of roots. I don't know if you can see, lot of roots. It has been in full moss since I got it. And I think someone sent me a division of it. The good thing about this Dendrobium is it's growing so fast. From what I've seen, it produces tall cakeys and lots of white cream flowers, a bunch of them. And I'm so happy. Hopefully, there is something in here. I don't know. What is that? If that's a sheet, no, it's leaves. Anyway, I don't know when I have blooms, but they are growing. This one is growing super fast. It's great. It's amazing. So I have the delicatum, and I think that concludes my collection of Dendrobiums. I've showed you all of my Dendrobiums. I used to have more. I made a list. So I lost in the last year. I lost, I think, around 2 Dendrobiums. I used to have the Falcurostrum, that it's dead because I couldn't find it anywhere. So I lost it, I don't know how. And the miniature one that I told you, the cool growing Dendrobium, the beautiful one. Beautiful Dendrobium. I love it so much, like very tiny. And anyway, I bought it and I lost it. That concludes my video about Dendrobiums. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you did, hit the like button, leave a comment down below. Let me know which one is your favorite and which kind of Dendrobiums you have at home. And if you have any questions about your Dendrobiums, drop them down below as well. I would love to exchange some information with you. And let me know if you'd like me to do another video about some other type of orchids. I would love to do it for you. And I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.